Hi everyone, I'm Kathy Choi. I am the GYOPO Programs Co-Chair along with Alex, back there, Alex Peck, and Ellie, and Eugene, who is not with us tonight. So welcome everyone. We're thrilled to welcome you to Between Worlds, Art and Shamanism in the Korean Diaspora. Woo. Yeah. Woo. We're also so excited to welcome you to the first program in our newly remodeled space. So deep gratitude to Grace Lee Lim for the in-kind interior design services and really stretching our dollar. It feels fitting to inaugurate our space tonight with this particular program. So GYOPO, as many of you know, is a volunteer-powered organization, so thank you to all of our volunteers who make tonight possible. Our free public programs depend on the dedication and love of our volunteers. So if you'd like to join GYOPO, please feel free to reach out to me or Alex, who I pointed out before. Joanne, you want to say, where's Joanne?
Right here.
Joanne is over there, and G's probably, yeah, G's doing behind the scenes stuff, so G's outside. So before introducing our three panelists, I just want to take a moment to commemorate one of GYOPO's co-founders who passed away recently. Many of you probably know, Young-Soon Min. So Young-Soon Min was one of our generation's most prolific Korean American artists. She remained active on GYOPO's steering committee until 2022 and on the program committee until 2023. GYOPO's two most wide-reaching, ambitious, heartfelt, and intellectually rigorous programs were of her vision. That's the Teresa Hapyeong-cha Dictate Marathon Reading. You can see the program there, and there's some copies in the back. Which brought together deaf and hard of hearing artists, poets, writers, activists, friends, and family for a 5-hour reading of Cha's magnum opus. We also had the two-part symposium, The Golden Age of Cinema in Post-War South Korea in 2023, which featured 12 scholars who spoke on the origins of what is now an international film and television culture in Korea. We are so indebted to Young-Soon and the profound insight, experience, compassion that she brought to crafting and fulfilling GYOPO's mission. Young-Soon leaves a lasting and profound legacy, and her impact will continue to uplift future generations of artists and thinkers. We mourn the loss of such a unique soul, and her legacy as an artist and community builder will forever be cherished, and the special relationship many in GYOPO had with her will live on through our programming, which we continue to organize in her honor and memory. Young-Soon's family has requested that donations be directed to GYOPO in Young-Soon's honor, and we have also set up this small altar you see here tonight for those who would like to take a moment to pay respect to Young-Soon and all of their ancestors who have transitioned. Okay, so now turning to this evening of our amazing panelists. So you can find their full bios on the event website, so I'll just give abbreviated versions here. So first, Seo Choi is a Korean American shaman, author, and the founder of Alpha Sisters Publishing. She has translated and published Budoji, A Tale of the Divine City of Ancient Korea, and Return, Korea's Rituals of Death, Spirits, and Ancestors. Meesha Goldberg is a Korean American artist, poet, gardener, and activist living in Virginia. She has exhibited her artwork in galleries across the country with solo shows in Los Angeles, Seattle, Portland, and Charlottesville. Na Mira grew up between the US and East Asia and lives in Los Angeles currently. Na's recent exhibitions have been presented across the globe and graduated from UCLA and the School of Art Institute of Chicago, and currently teaches at UC Riverside. In 2022, Wendy Subway published the first collection of her writing, The Book of Na. Okay, so please join me in welcoming our panelists.
Yeah, so hi everyone. It's blowing my mind to just be sitting in this room with you guys. I don't think I've ever been in a room with this many Korean, but also Korean American who are interested in the work we do, actually, and they're all in the same room. The movie scene that Ellie's trying to cue up is a scene in the film Manshin. I don't know how many people have seen the movie. It's a specific scene that's toward to the end. It shows Kim Keum-Hwa as a young girl going on this it's a kind of a rite of passage ritual that mudang to be goes through before. So they will be serving the whole village as a shaman. So before they go into the nerimgut or initiation ritual, they'll go from door to door collecting donation of metal, grain, money, or anything that they from the people. And then while she's doing it, she's able to kind of give some blessings. And then that donation pays for all the offerings needed and the shamanic tools they need to do the work as a shaman. So in this film, that scene is done in such a beautiful way. I don't know if you've seen, but Kim Keum-Hwa went through a lot of like life with like the Japanese colonization, independence, Korean War, the modernization, the just a lot of traumatic history of our Korean, like our parents' age or our grandparents' age. So the scene shows, she's doing the collection, but then it shows all the characters of the movie show up and they actually make a donation and blessing. So you'll be looking at, so we want to show you that, and then I'll be reading that kind of similar, that specific section in the book.
네, 상징이라고 생각해요. 그래서 그 칼에 딱 섰을 때의 존재감이 생기는 거죠. 나는 이런 존재다.
집안에 우는 데가 있어 돼지가 아프구나. 실험을 5, 6년 된 수저가 있으니 내 너무 싫어.
잘 불리죠? 새걸림 마을을 돌려 못 쓰는 쇠를 모으는 일이다. 이때 모은 쇠를 녹여 내린굿할 때 신에기가 받은 방울, 칼, 명도, 화경을 만든다. 신에기와 마을, 신과 마을이 이 건립을 통해 결성되며 신에기는 처음으로 마을의 사제가 될 자격을 얻는다.
못다.
크게 물으시오.
소원 이루고 대도 받아가세요. 빨리 마시라. 대가리 마시라.
I'm not quite happy with how the translation went, but you have a book that you could see how I translated. We translated it to be more authentic to the terminology of Korean shamanism. So for the ASL interpreter, I'm going to read something in Korean, but I'm going to immediately follow with English words. 외기러 왔어, 불리러 왔어. 닫은 문을 열려 왔어. 높은 산에 눈 날리고 얕은 산에 재불리듯 이대가중 대한가중 뛰어들고 소한가중 기어들째 죽은 새를 모아다가 산새를 만들려고 왔어. So that's the chant that she sang, and let me just read that part, that kind of leading up to it and a little bit after. The laundry seemed insignificant at that moment. Something was pulling me from afar, and my body felt weightless, making it unbearable. Let's go quickly, I mumbled. With those words, I started running wildly, not even noticing that my straw shoes had come off. I ran across the rice paddies and field banks until I reached the village. There, I began entering any house I felt led to. I've come on a lonely path. I've come to bless. I've come to open closed doors. Like snow fluttering on a high mountain and ashes blowing on a low mountain. As this family rises up and that family creeps low, I've come to gather dead metal and make it alive again. I spun around and danced wildly. Strangely, this song and chant I had never heard before flowed out of my mouth. After stopping my spinning dance, I stamped my feet on the ground and commanded loudly, "There's a medal crying out in this house that is 17 or 18 years old. It's on the shelf, so bring it here right away." The homeowner looked bewildered and went into the kitchen. He came out shortly with an old brass rice paddle in his hand, his face filled with surprise. "Wow, you're truly gifted. How could you have known there was a rice paddle there?" With his face a mix of surprise and admiration, he readily handed over the brass rice paddle. Receiving a rice paddle in one's first kolip was seen as a sign that one was destined to become a great mudang, whose fortune would expand. So I had a very auspicious beginning. So that's the part, and this 외기러 왔어. So it's done in North Korean dialect. And 외기러 왔어 felt so poignant to me as walking a path of a Korean American shaman. They felt really important to make it as a title of the book. Initially, I was going to do like memoir of a shaman, Kim Keum-Hwa, but then once I started working on it, became I have come on a lonely path. As a Korean American shaman who calls herself as a Korean American shaman, the way I practice is a bit different, right? I don't know of any other shaman who like writes and publishes books and does like share the wisdom. So I'm kind of walking in a weird lonely path, and I feel like artists understand that too. I feel like what this does is, the reason it's a lonely path is we take this non-physical, unable to see, touch energy, this, what you can call it imagination, you could call it spirit, you could call it inspiration, but we take this energy and then we channel it through us to do something. As a shaman, as my personal practice, I do sessions, healing session and wisdom session for clients, but I also make it into a tangible book that people can read. Artists do the same thing, right? You take that energy and you channel that through, and then through the medium of whatever, film, art, photography, painting, poetry, you create something that's tangible that can be shared with other people. And we do that, and in a way that's healing people, inspiring people. So we're kind of being a channel of this magic, channel of this wisdom and energy. So perhaps that's why you guys think this is such a great turnout, because there are a lot of Korean creatives, artists, and wanting to have that, like feeling that connection. So what I'd like to read next Actually, maybe I could tell you a little bit more. I'm going to backtrack and just give you a little bit of my personal story of how I got to publish this book. This book was published in 2007 in Korea, and the publisher went out of business in 2009. So the book just went out of print, and it just been gone for many years. At the time the book had just come out, she had gifted, that's okay. She had gifted a copy of her book in Korean to this woman who's a poet, healer, artist, dancer, who was in Korea for a visit. And she gifted that book. A white woman, white American woman. She didn't know how to read Korean, so she put it in her bookcase, and years have passed. And her name is Cheryl, and I became friends with her like good 15 years later, maybe 13 years later, as I was starting to explore Korean shamanism for my own spiritual path. And somebody said, oh, you should talk to this woman. She just published her memoir, and she mentions meeting this famous Korean shaman. I did not know who Kim Keum-Hwa was. So I met her, and through that friendship, when I first met her, she pulled that book from her bookcase and gifted to me, saying, I think I've been holding this book for you. So for that book to come into my hands 15 some years later, as I was exploring becoming a writer, becoming a Korean American shaman, or even like why am I being told to explore Korean shamanism for my path? That book was gifted at the time, and I didn't read the book for another couple of years because I felt like not ready. And when I finally read it, it was during the pandemics in 2020, after her death. She died in 2019, and that's how that. But by the time 2020 came, I was already starting to call myself as a Korean American shaman. I had published my book. I was starting to publish other people's book like Budoji and Return. So in a way, I feel like that's how divine magic works, how the seed was planted some 15 years ago through someone else that we didn't even know, and then now we get to experience this stories and her lessons. So I think it's very special. And sometimes that's how Korean American shamanism inspire like us into that work. How am I on time?
You have like around 3 more minutes.
Okay, then I would like to just finish my portion. Now, I read a portion about when she was starting out, right? So I want to read a portion from the book when like she's become an elder and has so many spirit daughters. And so I want to read you that portion and then finish my section. Before being a teacher, the spirit mother is first and foremost a fellow mudang who intimately knows the excruciating pain of the mudang's path. She knows how challenging and overwhelming it is to dedicate one's life to serving spirit, and how frustrating it is to be unable to live life according to one's will. In my younger days, I often wept out of self-pity and resentment toward the life I had to lead. Perhaps these thoughts are the cause. Whenever I welcome a new disciple and perform a nerimgut, I inevitably cry while chanting the mansebaji. Mansebaji is a shamanic song from North Korean origin that they kind of alternate chorus and lyrics back and forth. So this is what she sings in that. I've come to give blessings. I've come from a lonely path. To open closed doors, come follow me. It's a rough and distant path, a long way to go with no end in sight. But just keep following me along the endless path. Along the way, there will be rocky cliffs and thorny bushes. There will be mountains to climb and oceans to cross. Face every trial, endure, and overcome them. Keep your gaze high and your thoughts deep as you walk. Weather through all storms and tire. You will tire and fall. When you fall, rise again. And when you rise, you will fall again. You must keep rising. Keep falling countless times, and keep rising countless times. Keep falling, and finally, you will find your place to stand. It is the fate of the mudang to spend a lifetime caring for others and praying for their blessings, to the point where their bones are drained and bodies are exhausted, yet they never receive the recognition they deserve. People only desperately cling to mudangs and spirit in times of emergency and coldly turn away once their needs are fulfilled. Mudangs endure wounds from people, yet they never find solace in return. When the gut is over and the remnants of hemp and cotton burned away, which mudang have not shed tears at the fleeting emptiness of it all? And I am not really like an artist with the show, but I feel like artists might understand that kind of feeling of I just put everything into this and the show's over and the emptiness after the performance or emptiness. So I just feel like there's a lot of resonance to their work, our work, and you guys. So that's my portion.
Hey everybody, it's such a pleasure to be here with you, Na and Ellie and all the GYOPO family and folks here. My mother's family comes from Daegu. My father's grandparents came from Jewish villages in Russia. And I came here today from Charlottesville in the Blue Ridge Mountains. And me and Seo have been good friends for a few years, and we are on a little book tour with our 2 books from Portland to Los Angeles over this past week. And we've had a really lovely time going to the ocean, to the mountains, to friends' farms and places. So this is a really rich ending to this time right now. I'm going to share a few minutes from a experimental film I made a few years ago called Daughterland, and I just want to introduce it. I was living on a farm in Virginia for about 5 years, and there's this really old sacred tree there, about 300, 400 years old, and that place in Virginia is on the 38th parallel. And as I was contemplating my Korean Americanness and mixedness, I was making these connections between the landscape of these 2 places and how they connected. Like in Virginia, there's American ginseng, wild persimmon, wild chestnut, there's, and just like trying to shorten the bridge, like spiritually, and find place and homing on this land. And identity and spirit connection through this land, and do that in a political way, in a spiritual way, in a very land-based way on how I ate, how I prayed, how I went to the water. So this documentary, this film documents a 14-hour walk I did around that oak tree, dressed in my mother's journal that I had translated after holding on to it for 30 years after she died. And I never had translated it because I didn't feel connected to that side of myself because she died when I was 6. So after meeting Seo and some Korean community during the pandemic, I finally was like, well, one of them can translate it for me. And it opened up this whole world of getting to know my mother and who she was as a woman and a person, especially reflecting on her life and death. So I'm dressed in that, and I'm contemplating my own mother, the tree as a mother tree, the mother tree as this connection to Mother Earth, and with this kind of reason for doing art is to express our interconnectedness and dependence on this Mother Earth and a need for healing in our communities. So we could start the film. Yeah. And so I'm going off journeying then, barefoot in the daughterland, patient for sacred medicine, circling, uncircling, and circling again, like a moon, or maybe a buzzard in the presence of the ancestors, walking for my mother, who wrote.
사랑은 우리가 한 세상 살아가는 동안 공기보다 더 절실한 것이다. 한국에서 어머님이 오셨다. 너무나 뜻밖의 생각이었다. 내가 한국을 나가려고 예정이었는데 어머님께서 이 먼 곳에 오시게 된다니 꿈 같다. 오래간만에 만나 뵈니 반갑고 많이 늙어지신 것 같다. 고생을 하셔서 그렇겠지. 비행기는 도착 시간이 9시 30분이랬는데 얼마나 늦게 도착했는지 염려스러웠다. 어머님 오시는데 빨리 초청하느라고 데이브가 많은 애를 썼다. 일주일 만에 한국에서 오시게 됐다. 한 시간이라도 하루라도 오래 살아서 미셸 잘하는 것 돌봐줘야지 하면서 용기를 갖게 된다. 희망도 갖게 되고. 하나님께서 우리에게 시련을 주실 때는 그 시련을 이겨나갈, 극복할, 해나갈 힘을 주신다고 들었다.
We could stop it here, it's good. Yeah, so I kind of feel like some of the creative practice has been like intuiting into a way of finding connection to family, to spirit, to history through like investigation and curiosity in a project. And yeah, a lot. We ended up visiting a lot of those trees, me and Seo, on Jeju Island, and so that was a really nice full circle moment for me to like feel like it was worth it to enshrine this tree in a way that felt right to me, and just like navigate that process. I wrote a poem for this film, and I would like to recite it for you now. I'm just gonna hold this mirror up for a good look behind me, because you've got to know the body is a pair of haunted shoes. Maybe I'll get myself some healing seeking language of wildwood. But until then, I'll just circle here. I'm circling here. see these bloodlines of mine crisscross across roads, all mixed up off mountains, but now I'm the judge, sorting the yellow girl from the white with the red, white, blues. Because way back when my mama got up and left the motherland with a green army man. Oh, GI bride, war baby, you got out the country alive. But now they call the Korean War the Forgotten War, just the 4 million slaughter. Back then they can't call the GI bride a Yankee whore. But you know the body is a ledger keeping score, and until these souls are good and calloused, I think I'll circle here. Circle here, barefoot on red land, on Tongva land. Aeons of ancestors mounded, now gone plowed. I'm just gonna call this body the daughterland now. Because back where was napalmed and high rise, and all these homes are haunted and camouflaged white. But the swan song of Wildwood turns me on, and I'm in love with an ancient oak who's gone dodged every European. She ain't my elder, but maybe she'll help me find my tongue. Mother tree, may I enshrine you in white ribbon? See, my mama wrote me a diary in her dying year at 38. I'm wearing it now, a rice white gown to celebrate. She wrote, how long I will live, everything I cannot predict. This time, this moment, I guess I can only live today. And so today, I'll just circle here, uncircling here. Now is my moment. This time I'm 38. I guess today is our 30th parallel. And I guess this moment is our parallel fate. And I guess this tree is our DMZ. A matriarchal vibration must remain down in the root somewhere. There's an ambered echo to retrieve. A feeling like the grace of hands braiding the hair of kinfolk whose hands braid the hair of kin, braiding hair down the spine of generations. Black silk, black kink. The war was never ended, so all can't yet be lost. And so I'm going off journeying then, barefoot in the daughterland, patient for sacred medicine, circling, uncircling, and circling again like a moon, or maybe a buzzard, in the presence of the ancestors, walking for my mother who wrote, love is, while we live together in this world, something more essential than air. Okay. I'm gonna go through a couple other projects and processes that kind of brought us to this moment here. Yeah, so I guess I'll just say that going through that process of the ritual, and like which just like was like a lot of research, a lot of digging into family stuff. It kind of, and Seo was there. She blessed the tree in the morning, and Seo kept bugging me about going to Korea with her, and I'm like, and so it kind of like, that also helped me I found my mother's family, who I had never met there, and had a lot of kind of cool experiences connecting back. So it's like, just like opening up that door ended up unraveling a lot of mystery and connection for myself that really was like some of the best part of my own life personally. Yeah. So I started out as a painter, but then like kind of visionary art painter, like dreaming up paintings to paint, and I'm like, well, you know, why don't, instead of putting those like dream visions on a painting, why don't you just make that in real life and create this moment where there could be an interaction and calling from the land It could be a moment to bring community and people together and just have art that's way more in the world than in other like art spaces or like in the 2 dimensions. Like let's go full on like 8D or however, whatever dimensions you can access. And so the first project I did like that, it was walking for 100 miles through the almond orchards through the Central Valley, and with 6 women, we were dressed in golden gowns and walked talking to farmers, beekeepers, and just did a kind of prayer for the bees as all the bees were brought in to pollinate. But my most recent project was in Charlottesville. You probably know Charlottesville because of all the monuments that have been taken down there. So there's one where there's Lewis and Clark in Sacagawea. They took it down, but the base is still there. And so we went up onto the base and hugged for 2 hours. So I don't know how to sing or dance, but I can do like a very ordinary thing for a long amount of time. So my practice is built around like doing some endurance, which I think is an interesting metaphor for like the enduring we do through like dystopia and to survive, and then as well as adding my poetry as a kind of storytelling layered into that, and as well as like costume, and as well as the endurance being and also like a meditative kind of transcendental part of the ritual that pushes the body to an extent where it's possible to be more in the spirit. So that project was wild because we got to have Sacagawea's relatives come out for a symposium with the really amazing women who have melted down the Lee Confederate statue, which is being recast into a new public artwork that is that's going to be created with community support. So that 2-hour hug up there, like it just felt like oh, you gotta go up there, you gotta go up there. So I just like listen to a voice like that sounds like very improbable or illegal, and just like follow with it and have it be, like I'm interested in like how something could be kind of like drawing upon civil disobedience, drawing upon ritual, drawing upon the artwork as an offering to the community, and kind of melding that in with like shamanistic consciousness, where we're acknowledging that everyone is interconnected, that we are of the earth, that we have loyalty and responsibility to the past and present and future generations. I guess I'll end with the last poem that kind of is most relevant to like Korean diasporic experience, called Motivation. And I want to introduce there's an epigraph at the end, and it is taken from a documentary on Shimani, ginseng gatherers. And the quotation goes, "Every ginseng gatherer feels the same if they don't find any for a couple days. They feel the urge to give up. That's when the mountain spirit gives you one. That's what motivates us to keep going." We imagine our relatives still put us anonymously into prayers on Lunar New Year, but there was no telling. There was no telling if our ancestors would descend 18 hours just to reach us speaking English. in the fiction of the New World, we fragmented our longing. But as we are mountainless, imagination festered. Nothing suggested such, but we imagined ourselves remembered, and that myth's sore legs could walk us. Our American cloud mountain, Septembered and buried, we imagined how grandmothers could guide us, the blindfolded. Though we did not offer a single persimmon, though wild tigers stalked us out of our dreams, and though we ripped out every root with great carelessness, our longing is holy because we did not abandon it. Every ginseng gatherer feels the same if they don't find any for a couple days. They feel the urge to give up. That's when the mountain spirit gives you one. And that's what motivates us to keep going.
Welcome back, y'all. Thank you so much, everybody, for coming out. My name is Na Mira. I am gonna show a little bit about some recent artwork, and there will be some videos that have a flashing light effect if anybody is sensitive to that. It's going to kind of recur throughout. And otherwise, let's keep our fingers crossed that any of the other glitches that come through will be fun ones. In 2018, I traveled to South Korea following 2 family stories of transgression spanning a century. My great-grandmother, who lived as a shaman under the Japanese occupation when the practice was outlawed, and my uncle, who drove his motorcycle across... Maybe it's a fun one. Across the 38th parallel to North Korea. An important scholar asked me if my great-grandmother was a famous shaman. In Korean culture, when a woman has a child, she's often referred to as mother of blank. I did not know her name. He took me to a shaman ritual, and there were many TV journalists there. At one point, there was a break in the ceremony, and the audience was invited to dance, which is what I chose to film. A cameraman leaned over and said I was wasting my time. What they were waiting for was the shaman to return with a pig's head and swords. That was the money shot. No one wanted to see this. And it's true. I want what no one wants. I want what no one wants to see. I wait, and witnessing what arrives, I acknowledge the apparatus and animism. The violent production and distribution of images precedes me and surrounds me. The desires of the camera, the light, the land, these frequencies guide me. I went to the matriarchal island of Jeju with my friends Sewon and Yeonju and my infrared camera. The camera is made to be held by a tree, so it doesn't have a viewfinder, and you can't be sure if it's filming. So I put it around my neck and forgot. And watching it in the morning, all the footage had a glitch. It would take scenes from the past and repeat them over the present. Like the technology of shamanism itself, it did not leave the past behind. When I returned to Seoul, I read reports that endangered tigers, a shaman spirit god and symbol of Korea not seen since the war, had been spotted in the preserved ecosystem of the demilitarized zone. The witnesses said they sounded like motorcycles revving. So I asked a shaman to help me find the tiger, and she told me it was their spirit I was seeking and that I needed to practice their movements and pray and go to a mountain. So, for weeks, I rubbed tiger balm on my face and crawled and listened. Then a message arrived. If you take your camera to the border, you can cross. I could call this an idea I had, but it wasn't something I could grasp. It was not mine. I was only watching the break in the footage. I never thought to use it. The camera was night vision. I didn't know if it would film during the day, and you could only visit the DMZ on a guided tour. And I only had 2 weeks left in Korea, so I didn't know if any of it was possible. But my friend Leda and I made it onto a bus, and they let us out at Mount Dora, the closest civilian point to North Korea. So I handed her the camera and asked her to try to face me and then try to face north. I got down on my hands and knees and began to crawl. The tour guide was nervous and whispered into my ear, "I need you to tell me you have lost something." "I need you to tell me you are looking for something." And then the glitch transposed me in the body of a tiger across one of the most militarized landscapes in the world. My mother Nayop called me when I was in Korea, and I asked her for the first time, "What is it like when the voices speak to you?" She said, "There is a window that flashes with a pattern of light. This is how night vision was first shown at the Seoul Museum of Art, to no one, to everything. Continuing to use this camera, I followed infrared's heat to the edges of perception. I am guided through a series of signs and sounds and synchronicities to other borders of rupture. The leaking San Onofre nuclear generator station, the paved Los Angeles River, and the final scenes of artist Teresa Hakkyung-cha's life and work. In December of 2020, I was invited by Kathy Cho at the Kitchen in New York to make a project reflecting on my practice in relationship to Teresa Hakkyung-cha. She was an artist and writer who was murdered in 1982, just weeks before I was born. Automatic writing is a process that I've been using across my projects for the last 10 years, developing on traditions from feminist poetics and Korean Budoji talismans. I enter it as a conversation. So I asked with my eyes closed and tongue prone, with my non-dominant hand, how do I ride the knives like the shaman in her ritual? It answered, 나는 둘째 사람 간다. Nayop called as I was doing this, and she translated the Korean. I am the second person going. The next day, I found the treatment and shot list for Teresa Hakkyung-cha's final unfinished film, White Dust from Mongolia. She describes one character who is in the past and has lost her memory, and a second character in the present who is retrieving those memories, and how their two narratives superimpose into one point in time. In the final scene of the script, character number 2 walks directly into the screen. 나는 둘째 사람 간다. I asked in my writing, what would happen if I recorded Cha's final scene? And I received the word tesseract, which was not familiar to me, and I learned means the fourth dimension of a cube. It's hard to perceive because we're in the third dimension, so the tesseract is often used to describe a portal to another world. In the performance, I used a microphone that I made based on an image my ancestors showed me of a channel of air, and a sonic cosmology of Korea where the world is created from flutes. I had a latex tube in my studio that I'd used to pump mugwort through sculpture. It's a lucid dreaming herb. So I taped it to a microphone, wrapped it in a piece of metal like a shedding snakeskin, and I plugged it into a looping pedal. Okay, so now we're gonna see if the sound works. Oh, wait, actually, sorry. I can't control it, I guess, here. I'll control it on the screen. Don't worry. Okay. It didn't pick up any sound, so I left it on the floor and continued the performance. After several rounds of entering the projection, breaking the fourth wall, I turned up the amplifier and voices started pouring out, barely a word, an utterance, sometimes a melody. For months afterwards, I would turn the amplifier on and nothing would happen. I would move the tube, go closer and farther away. I kept listening. Then, the transmission returned and became audible as 1540 AM Radio Korea. There are 123 stations in Los Angeles, and 2 are Korean language. I cannot choose the station because I do not have a radio. On nights and weekends, they play music. In 2020, curators Adrian Edwards and David Breslin had invited me to show night vision and whatever happened next in my research for the Whitney Biennial. By 2022, I still wasn't sure where this trail was leading. Until on Valentine's Day, I found an old phone recording with Nayop, where I asked her to recite Teresa Hakkyung Cha, Becoming Promise, Becoming Threat.
There's a deep 여러분의 라디오 코리아입니다.
환자의 안전과 건강이 최우선인 메디컬 그룹. 전문의 리포가 아주 빠른 서울 메디컬 그룹이 7시를 알려드립니다.
Since 1989, you're listening to Radio Korea, AM 1540, KMPC, Los Angeles.
Hunter in all cavity, he is flesh.
In researching how to project onto a window while still being able to see through it, I learned to apply a film to the glass. The ones I found were all called hologram. When you cut a photograph, it divides. When you cut a hologram, it multiplies, because the holo, from Latin meaning whole, is in every part. The Korean shaman ritual is called kut. She rides a knife's blade. No one, she is called manshin, 10,000 spirits. The fugitive frame breaks the seams of representation, opening a dimension beyond trauma's image. And weaponized, the compression of hyper-femininity on the Asian body explodes in the glitch. Images unravel with her excess, threaded across being, the past always already now. Transmuting and diffracting through space, we are disoriented, co-constituted, in time's unfurling. Listening for the quantum poetics of memory and diaspora between Teresa Hak-young Cha's archive and my own, I continue to collaborate with Cha on her unfinished project. She proposed structuralism, fragmentation, and ritual as forms to address the forced migration of Koreans under military occupation and its effect on language and identity. Embodying her materiality, I began shooting on 16mm film. These scenes play simultaneously in the shape of an unfolded cube, a black box in a gallery, an archive exploding across the mirrors that shamans use to see the spirits, the eros of an as-yet ancient horizon of address. Cha writes of white dust from Mongolia. All the elements I have outlined are encompassed in the larger context of memory, which I would develop in this piece as a collective source, as almost having physical and organic dimensions, where space and time superimpose within it. It represents a body of time, units in time, inside the time mass that is eternal and immeasurable, within which our existence is marked like a wound. NIOP has been telling me for years that my real art is to invent a new color, something like pink. I started to see it with my eyes closed, an after image. Red is the first color to disappear from sight, so it's used in the film developing darkroom and the interior of the theater's architecture. Descending the electromagnetic ladder of frequency, the last of the visible waves are tailed by heat, then radio. Watching the red screen, we can ride the light, an image moving elsewhere. I asked in my automatic writing, is the fourth dimension love? And it said, 생일 축하합니다. Meaning happy birthday. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you all so much. So we're just going to have a little discussion and then open it up to questions from you all. So think of questions and we'll head into reception. So I had one question for you all listening to you all speak tonight, and I think we also all experienced some moments where we were keenly aware of the constraints of our modern day technologies. You know, I feel like Kim Keum-Hwa never dealt with airplay, didn't have to deal with the fickleness of these technologies, and yet that's what we have. But we also have our somatic knowledge and our ways of tapping into ancestral ways of knowing and being. And so wondering how the three of you think about, bridging the modern day technologies we have at our disposal and not ignoring them, while also tapping into the portals, the rituals, the somatic knowledge, and connecting back to ancestors and time slips.
Well, we weren't prepared for this question. Technology. Personally, my practice doesn't really include that much of technology, other than without Instagram, I wouldn't be able to connect with all of you. So social media, but when I really think broader, this book really shows that our ancestors were hungry. They were so hungry, and just all they could think about, am I gonna eat today? So to me, I feel like just practicing Korean American shamanism, and I always make sure that I call it Korean American shamanism, because as a diaspora, I don't think it's appropriate for us to just take whatever Korean people are doing, because Korean shamanism in Korea has evolved over 5,000 years of their life, their history. We can just take it and try to apply it here, because as a diaspora, we have a different world, and they don't know all the, racism, microaggression, all the religious trauma, the immigration trauma, we know, right? So to me, it's almost like kind of acknowledging that we are supposed to practice our spirituality or connection, whatever you want to call it, differently, our own way. But also, just so much privilege. I'm never hungry, we're not starving. And so we do have, the technology allowed us to be really in this body, we're really nurtured, and we have, privilege to really explore this and create something beautiful like Na and Meesha are doing, and we could share. At the same time, there's a Korean word is calling 간절함, the longing, right? When you are starving, that longing, the hunger, that need, we do lack that, I think. So I don't know. That's how I feel about just practicing our shamanism or this into our life.
It's interesting, I guess, hearing you talk about that need and that hunger, and kind of thinking about Han, and also both of you kind of touched on this kind of intense experience of suffering, right? This walking on the path alone, and the only being able to find the ginseng after you haven't been able to find it for so many days, that kind of real space of the edge. And I actually think that there's something about negativity, as a kind of a radical gift that is from the ancestors too, as something that I kind of interpret in my practice. And I don't know, I guess just thinking about like how to work from, how to acknowledge weakness as strength, how to work from the underworld, the invisible, the void, and femininity, right? And allow those to be tools that are powerful. Yeah, I don't know, which I guess is part of the working with the technological glitches, right? Because it is something that happens, and so how do we kind of open to these maybe like registers of value, right? As being different kinds of opportunities, I guess. I'm also thinking of Namjoon Paik, who was one of the founders of video art, and he, in the early 60s, I mean, he was identifying as a Korean shaman, and he believed that the frequency in broadcast was a communication with the spirits, and that video art was the ritual, and that everybody could have a channel. So this is also part of our inheritance.
I mean, if internet is not magic, because I'm old enough to live in a period where there's no internet, so to me that's like, it's magic.
But even Kim Keum-Hwa had this like dance and interaction with the like TV and being photographed and documented. So I feel like on an elemental level, like all of technology is still nature and is still like all malleable and adaptable to be manipulated and to be like we're evolving and adapting to this world, and so like everything is like an oracle or an opportunity to like investigate the nature of reality and ways of hacking it or interpreting it, or like doing a dance and manipulating it. Like a lot of my practice stems from nature and like an some distaste for technology and as like noise over like the voice of nature, and so like in my practice, like I tend to go into nature or place to seek the spirit of that, but still technology to document it and to let it live on. But I feel like a lot of artists, like as we and like my friends like question of like the efficacy or the meaning or purpose of art and why we do what we do, I feel like primarily it's something that in my perspective is something done unto oneself, where like primarily whatever the effect is, like let the effect be upon one's own life and understanding first, and then as it's documented and shared in an audience, then it can be something that is for others. And I think in that way, like it makes like it helps make your life meaningful and your curiosities about like why we're here, like healing that needs to get done for oneself, and like weaving together like the meaning and poetry of life.
Welcome to the safety of the table.
Hi, my name is Emily Lee, and I'm Korean American, and I'm originally from the East Coast. I'm from New York, but came here for school. I'm studying at Occidental College in Pasadena. But my question is, when you're talking about like receiving the book at a specific time in your life and like kind of divine timing, I'm resonating with that because I've always wanted to explore more spirituality. I've always been very intuitive, but I never really knew what path I wanted to go down. And for the first time in my life, I'm experiencing a huge push to pursue shamanism. So I guess my question is like, and I know it's different for everyone, and everyone's own experience of like how they get started, but yeah, I guess my main question is like, how do you kind of ground yourself in beginning this journey, if that makes sense?
I'll answer that question because I get asked this a lot, and I work with a lot of Korean American wanting to connect. If I just break it down, because you can really break it down, but these are like basic that you have to have these, right? One is we have to somehow connect our ancestry. So that means, but it's not about like, oh, my grandmother and great grandfather. It's the Korea culture. The land is an ancestor. The culture is ancestor. Music, art is ancestor. So any food is ancestor. So if you could expand and say, in whatever authentic way can I connect to my physical ancestry, which is Korean. Also, this land that we live in, because this is our home right now, this is also our ancestor. So we have to connect with what part of this land and culture and life that we want to connect with. And then, so the ancestor, so that's when this divine timing, the breadcrumbs, the signs, and things start coming in, that in order for us to process, so whether you want to call it healing or clear the blockage we have or find the inspiration to create something beautiful, whatever it is, for us to be able to process this connection, we have to have some type of a spiritual practice. If you're a Christian, go to church, but it doesn't, just because you're a Christian and go to Christian church doesn't mean you cannot really have the shamanic practice or have an element of Korean American shamanism, I think. But religion is one way, but meditation, praying. So always like figure out a way to connect ancestors, have an ancestor altar at your home, and then meditate, pray, have some type of because it's almost like we gotta show up. We gotta show up and dedicate ourselves to some type of a practice. We can just be like, ooh, this was really great. And then like, now I'm practicing it, but what are you doing? Right? So those are the three things that it sounds simple, but I think that's a great place to start. And that's exactly what I do. And I haven't been doing that long. I haven't been doing this that long either, but I think it's solid plan.
Do you want to respond also?
Yeah, I guess, I'll share one thing that I do is that I like to go to the water, like wherever I am, and to do an offering to the water and to have that be just some space to connect to like the source of life or to pray or to like ground in. So like right now that's pretty simple for me, but even just like when you're with something that like the water, I always feel like refreshed in my spirit going to the water. So I feel like the water, they say, is the first medicine. It's the source of life, and it's just as basic as that. Like things don't need to be too complicated in terms of what like brings us into connection with the sacred.
Thank you so much for sharing your practices with us today. It's really beautiful to see different forms of contemporary Korean American shamanism come out. Na, I really appreciated your description of the void within your work and how that's kind of like the edge, especially in this in-between ethereal spiritual space of like Korea radio speaking to you, or hearing happy birthday, or like the photo, Meesha, of the trees with the ghost images of the deer and the woman passing by. That was really beautiful. I was wondering if you all would be interested in talking about how your personal Korean ancestries approach the edge of coming into the temporary from your ancestral background and how it meets different dimensions or different channels within you. For instance, the Teresa Hakyongcha work is very, it feels very French, right? With like the frame and memory, very Proustian. And Meesha, I feel like you're dressed like a Korean babushka. So yeah.
Thank you. So interesting. Okay, how to get into this? I guess I was thinking a little bit actually when you were in your poem talking about your Korean mother marrying a GI, I think, and I was thinking about in Korean this legacy of referring to Korean women who are either marrying white American men or doing militarized sexual labor for them. There is this term, Western princess, Yanggongju, and in the myth of the first shaman is about Parigongju, who's the abandoned princess. And I think in just like part of my own process, there was a point when, you know, I realized like sometimes in Korea when people kind of ask me like where I'm from and I say that my mom is Korean and my dad was a white American, like there's sometimes like kind of a reaction, particularly with a certain generation. And I also found that when I would share that I was doing research on shamanism, there was also like this kind of taboo would be triggered sometimes, and in both instances, sometimes I would just be met with this kind of like a bit of repulsion. And there was a point when, you know, I realized that there was a connection there between the two Gongjus, that actually like it felt that being a part of this like very charged mixed race lineage of Korean women and also this lineage of shamanism, that like being in that liminal space, it felt actually, I don't know, like there had been, maybe I had felt like there was like some kind of lack before, and then when I felt them kind of come together, it felt like really powerful, like there was a community there, you know, and it was like kind of regal, you know, like, okay, I come from a line of princesses, and, you know, like I will make that, I will like work with that void, I will make from that void, right? Like we work with death, we work with the unknown. And so I think to me that feels like a contemporary kind of meeting place, and that sort of being able to sort of continue what are traditions by being able to then develop my own practices and make offerings back to the ancestors. I think about that often too, like, so I have learned these traditions, and these are the traditions that were based on like where they were at the time, which is like, you know, the image that I got of my ancestors was from the Budoji, which is literally the beginning of time, you know? And like, that was an image that I was shown as based on trying to meet my well ancestors. It was kind of like, let's just go back, and if you meet somebody who's not well, it's cool, like let's keep going. And then I met someone, and then the image that I was shown of like making these tubes of air, I then read later was in the Budoji. So anyway, just to say like maybe that my only healthy ancestor is literally a woman at the beginning of time. You know, that's what we're working with, right? And so like there is a lot to heal in that lineage, and like I honor like all of the Han between as a power. And so like, yeah, I will take the failures of this time and like that lack and I will feed back and give back to them from like what I'm able to sense where I am now, and I hope they meet me here.
Could I ask, like, what do you feel like is the main way that you give back?
I think, so I mean, I have my own ritual practices, and that it's also like taken me, I mean, to answer your question, like many years to kind of build those. So like I was saying in the beginning, like, okay, I guess I have to learn just what it is to meditate. I have to get into like, what is it to be in a devotional practice with kind of the unknown? Like, what is it to like wait and listen? What is it to acknowledge like the animism within all that moves through me and is around me, and then in that listening, I think a lot of what I'm doing is kind of transmission and maybe amplifying, right? So it's like I'm making offerings, but then I do kind of feel like, I mean, it's like when the radio sound came to me, I was like, okay, I am a shy person, but I have received this transmission, and I think like it's not like, this isn't me, so I can't hate it, you know, because it's easy to do that with yourself. But I was like, I think I'm a steward of this thing, so I have to try to share it back. So I guess that's kind of how I'm imagining it. What about you?
I don't know, I guess like our life is offering in a way of like trying to tend one's own life with some good intentionality towards like some sweetness and warmth.
I love that.
So Lee, the question is like, how do I push the edge in my work, kind of, or
similar to how you were describing how you discern, you don't identify as a Korean shaman, but a Korean American shaman.
So for me, I think me living my best life is like really pushing the edge. Because I mean, as some of you guys know, the Koreanness means pressure to conform. Like somebody else is going to tell you what's wrong, and you're not good enough, or that's not good enough, or that's not right enough. There's this nebulous thing that I'm not free to be who I am. So I live by those rules. Part of my book, my first book, was that like until my spiritual awakening happened in my 40. So that means I live almost 40 years, like getting the perfect grade, be the good girl, and you know, get a job and get an MBA and be the like all that bullshit. And then I was just so miserable. I walked away, and when I actually had the courage to walk away, just like with all this life, and I'm here, I need to get happy. The spiritual stuff started happening. So it's like even my work, you know, most shamans need to get initiation ritual. I never had to. My guy just came and got seated at my altar and say, I'm so and so, I'm going to help you do this. I'm so and so, I'm going to help you do this. So when you guys explore Korean shamanism, people are going to be like, oh, you have to do it this way. You have to do it this way. Well, I'm not, and it's working for me, and my guides are my guides, and everything I do. So it's having that permission, giving myself permission to be really free and explore. Now, don't get me wrong, I don't just show up and say, oh, give it to me, and then it's a shaman. I do work at it because they tell me so. They guide me so. I'm dedicated to my practice. So other humans telling me that's not good enough, you're not doing it, you know, you could just say, okay, well, don't care, because I don't see you putting out a book. You know, I don't see you translating a Budoji. You go ahead. It's your journey. Your spirit guides are telling you to be that. That's you, but like, I'm good. But also, yeah, because if I went to Korea, people are going to be, oh, you're Budang? Oh, but oh my God, you're married to a woman? Like, I'm already like, So if I started listening to it, I feel like I listened to it too many years. So I'm kind of learning to be really free, and that's what Meesha said, like the sweetness and the joy of it, and then being rewarded with so much love and blessings from spirits and ancestors. It is a lonely path, though. I called Meesha once as having my own breakdown, and I said, Meesha, I'm so tired of doing these big things and hard work based on basically what ghosts tell me, right? Like, I don't have any, like, oh, why are you doing all this? Because they told me to, like, they do. But sometimes it's a lonely path, but I think you guys could also connect with that too. Sometimes this searching and pushing the edge and just putting yourself out there. Yes, radio talk to me, and, I'm channeling Teresa Gyeongcha. Yeah. But I think that's us pushing the edge, so.
Wow, amazing. Yeah, we should just thank you for that. Let's have just one more question, and then we're gonna break. I saw over here. Yeah, go ahead.
I'm really curious what spiritual awakening looks like. Like, I guess I grew up with the image of walking on knives and kind of knitting and all this stuff. And I think it's hard for me to kind of basically visualize what that actually looks like in reality for each of you. Yeah, what does that look like?
I'd like to know.
I think you being here is spiritual awakening. Us being here, opening ourselves up to how other people are doing it. I'm curious, the curiosity and interest and our presence to be willing to explore, that's spiritual awakening, I think. Because so many people live their lifetime completely numbed and completely shut down, right? A lot of our parents' generation did, right? Or they were programmed with different religion and different ideology and this or else, so they're completely just shut that all off. So the fact that you guys are sitting here and just having this conversation is part of awakening. There's no one right way, So to me, spiritual awakening is us connecting to our own soul and then starting to really get the answers and wisdom and healing and all the love from within this relationship,
I love that. I guess I was thinking maybe trust. I think it has something to do with trust.
Yeah, faith.
Yeah. I mean, because I think in the beginning, for me, there was something that I wanted to understand. I knew that my mother could hear voices, and I was as having been your translator for a long time, I need to figure out how to get involved in this conversation because I don't know if they're listening to you. So I kind of started entering into this journey, and I think there's so many times of being what am I doing here, and what am I going to do next, and what does this mean, and just continuing to take steps in the dark, and learning through faith, and also with friends and with the land. There's so much that I learned, not from necessarily exactly writing on knives, but usually later. But I think, I was saying, that I went on this trip to Korea with my friends, and there's so much that we learned just from being on the land. There would be places that we would go in Jeju, and we would be I kind of just feel I want to do this dance here. Even now I get chills, and I'm I guess I kind of want to do this dance here, and there's sort of this sound that I would never normally make outside of my body, but I am compelled to do this now, and it was I struggle with even doing karaoke. I mean, I cannot sing. But both of the people, Saewon Oh and Youngju Lee, they were both musicians, and they both have earth-based practices, so that made it really like safe for me, but it was really kind of through being together that we were able to just like come into our own rituals. Like it just began to happen, you know? And like I said, I met with this really important shaman scholar, and there was just the certain kind of like values and gatekeeping around what like the message of what shamanism is, that I think I realized was being kind of produced and circulated and controlled actually by like a small group of men, of an ancient practice that has, you know, mostly been femme. So it was, I mean, I really, you know, came out of that experience where they were like, oh, we just want to see this particular kind of possession-based shamanism, which is, it's like a specific practice that's from, more from the north, is what I've learned, and that in the more southern part of Korea, there's a lot more like community-based kind of folk medicine practices that are, it's more like family-based. And so there just are different traditions, and like there's a reason why there's a certain kind of image that we see on like K-dramas about, that's like, oh, an individual who's set apart from society, whose like only thing is that, you know, she suffers and that she's like maybe doesn't have agency in this, what you know, I find is a conversation actually with the spirits, you know? So I think there are traditions, and then there are stereotypes and narratives that have their own kind of purposes that they serve. Yeah, so I think full circle. What did I say? It's about trust. Yeah, trusting in yourself and your community and the land, all as being teachers, all as holding these wisdoms and practices.
Yeah, I guess I'd like to add too is that I feel like the path isn't linear in a way, and like the way that things will come into sense or meaning is like can be very like full circle. You don't know why something happens at this point, but there might be some understanding that happens further on. So just like in what saying of a practice of continually coming into respect and reverence and openness to spirit, and like continually returning and trusting in things unfolding, that there is kind of like affirmation that emerges of knowing your of knowing in the reality of what you're experiencing, and how you can use those lessons to help yourself understand yourself, help others and express it.
Thank you. Can we all just give a big